let's get this thing started. So we're back for another episode of Marketing Mondays. This is our second episode. Really excited to have Laura here. As many of you know, at Vnzo, it's mostly just me who's filmed, and I'm kind of tired of it. And we got to showcase the rest of the team. And Laura, could not be more excited than to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I was looking up how K-pop idols look cute on camera, and it was this, so I'll be doing this a lot. How's that sound?
I mean, if that's what you want to do.
Okay, never mind.
No, I'm just kidding. All right, so today's episode, we're going to be talking about the art of AEC blogging. And here's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover different types of blogging and their importance, topic identification, anatomy of a blog post, and promoting your blog content. And I don't think I could have chose a better person than Laura to join us here today. So Laura, if you just want to share a little bit about yourself, what you do with Vnzo and your background, that'd be awesome.
Sure. So, hello, I'm Laura. I'm the lead copywriter here at Vnzo AEC. I've been doing copywriting for the better part of a decade now, which is pretty exciting. I should say content writing. I specialize in that. So we tend to do a lot of long form content here, so focusing on web page copy and especially blogs.
So we're going to jump right into our first segment, and that is different types of blogs. So Laura, if you want to start us off, what are some different types of blogs?
You know, you can subdivide blog types into many different categories, but I'd say one of the big ones I think you'll think about is just informative blogs. So a lot of search traffic goes with questions, you know, where is that? How does this work? How do I make this happen? And an informative blog takes that question, breaks it down into its constituent parts, and answers it as best it can in a way that the search engine likes and that clients also find valuable. The other one that we think about a lot for AEC clients specifically are project profiles. So obviously AEC clients do beautiful work. They, you know, remodel things, build things, what have you, and just putting out pictures is good. Putting out content around it, a narrative of it, is better. Again, it can get better search traffic, and it also can convey a point to your clients, your prospective clients, to tell them basically your side of the story of how it went. Third one, news and updates, not the most exciting usually, but they can be depending on what your company's up to.
And that reminds me, we've got a new segment here on Marketing Mondays, and that is the hot take. And a hot take, for those of you that don't know, it's a controversial opinion. It's where most people think X, but you think Y. And that just jogged my hot take for today. And that is a news update about Johnny Appleseed joining your firm. That's not a blog. That's an announcement. Most people don't really care. I hate to be so blunt about it. It's not content that's super engaging. It's just kind of here and there. Nobody's searching for it. You know, you might get a social media post out of it, but I just think it's not super necessary or effective. But
I don't necessarily disagree with this hot take, but I do have a caveat. So with this kind of content where it is just a personnel update, yeah, if you're just doing a paragraph, so-and-so showed up, whoop-de-doo, not great content, but it's an awesome opportunity to interview the new person that you've talked to. So interview content, we haven't talked about this as much, but using quotations and personal experiences can get you access sometimes to search terms that are kind of hard to queue up otherwise, and it's genuinely valuable. People like reading about people. So even if that interview doesn't have like the most relevance to your search terms, it can create real value and engagement and entertainment. Sometimes this stuff should just be entertaining. So interview is my caveat there, if you can turn it into a proper piece of content.
there we go.
And then guest blogs is another category of blog that doesn't always live or doesn't immediately live on your own localized blog. Guest blogs, typically you would write them for a trade publication or for an authoritative website, somewhere that you think is going to be where your prospective clients are, but that has more authority than just your website has. And so getting a guest blog up can be really great for thought leadership and really great for standing out in your industry.
So let's zoom out the lens a little bit, and when we think about AEC marketing in general, some firm owners and marketing managers, they may question the effectiveness or the importance of blogging altogether. And I think it's important to look at it through an SEO lens and having your site rank highly on Google for different terms so people can find you and your firm and hire you for X, Y, or Z project. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of blogging and why it should be a pretty big pillar of your marketing strategy as an AEC firm.
There's a lot of reasons why it's valuable. I can understand why people on initial glance are like, oh, it's a lot of work for something that just does what? Makes my website seem fuller? Like, what's the value in that? It does make your website seem fuller. Like, let's say that. It's nice to have good content on your website. From an SEO perspective, it's how people find you. So the copy on your web pages and the copy that's in your blog is what the search engine is basically looking for and indexes you on and comes up with. I'm sure you're going to talk to an SEO expert to get more details on that, but as a writer, I know the basics. And without good content that's high quality, that's well categorized, and that's easily searchable, you're just not going to show up when they're looking for things, and you want to show up. That's the point.
If you look at the purpose of blogs, it's mostly informative content. So people are searching for how to build out an office space, or maybe different trends with office space design or hospitality design, whatever that looks like. Those are more informational type pieces of content. But then you also have transactional pieces of content. So that's going to be like a location page or a service page. So on top of blogs, you also have really that transactional content that needs to be well written. And a lot of these practices we're going to get into today, you can utilize with that as well. So I don't know if you wanted to touch on that point at all. But.
Sure. I mean, one thing that's interesting, that's important to divide is what distinguishes blog writing from that transactional web page copy, because they all technically live on a web page. But the blog being more informational, a lot of time your company is a little bit more decentralized from the content. So you obviously want to be mentioned, especially at certain key points, which we'll talk about later. But it's meant to be more, it seems universally valuable. It's not just pitching your company. However, the transactional content, the content that's actually on your web page, that's promoting you, that's speaking to your best side and your best interest. And so the voice and tone will often be a little bit different, especially if there's going to be more we and I statements on your webpage content.
Well said. So I think we touched on Google visibility, transactional content, informational content. Let's touch a little bit on establishing a firm as a thought leader. I think it's important for an architect to share the trends and to share insight and how-to as to their approach and their work. Also, maybe making predictions or just producing content that people genuinely want to read. Maybe they're not searching for it, but they see it and they want to interact with it. So maybe we can touch on becoming a thought leader.
Absolutely. Now, first, I need to say something. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad. They hate the term thought leader. They bring it up all the time. I don't know why. I like the term thought leader. But
Mom and Dad.
My parents literally don't like the term thought leader. I don't know why. They don't like it when I bring it up. But I think it's valuable, but I think it is a little bit misunderstood. So it's gotten really trendy that every single industry, you have to be the thought leader in everything. I think that there's more value in pursuing that kind of content with a really sort of niche information and niche technology focused industry like AEC. That's something where you do really want thought leadership, because you get people that are more hesitant to invest with somebody that doesn't seem like an expert, that doesn't seem like a thought leader.
It's a big purchase.
Yeah, exactly. It's a huge investment. And so you want whoever you're working with to seem like an expert, not just seem like an expert, be an expert, but project expertise as well.
And practice what they preach, essentially.
Exactly.
And if we bring this down to the ground level, let's say you're competing for a project, you're competing against 2 or 3 other firms, and the client doesn't exactly know what they want from a design perspective, and you just published 2 or 3 blogs on designing your new space. Include them in your RFP response. And when your client sees that, oh yeah, they're constantly putting out great ideas and great insights, I'm going to go with them. And it's hard to say. It's really hard to say that a piece of marketing won you new work. But having all that builds up and really increases your chances of winning said project. So I think we're going to jump to the final point in this category, and that is showcasing your work and your approach and how meaningful that can be. What really comes to mind for you, Laura?
It's funny because I think especially with AEC, you immediately think about visual content. You think about photos and video as a critical way of showing it. And those are irreplaceable. Like no narrative is going to replace image content. But if you have visuals with no narrative attached to them, then you're really leaving the door open for people to interpret your work however they see fit.
And I think with that narrative, there's an opportunity to showcase your expertise. I was on a job site, would have been last year, maybe the year before. It was a historic renovation project, and they had to redo these doors from the late 1800s. And the process that this firm went through to get these doors to where they felt new but still had kind of that old flair, they had to send it to like 2 or 3 different locations. And if it's just a couple of images of the project and a quick 1 paragraph, that expertise and those relationships never see the light of day. You know, so I think showcasing those cool elements, especially if it's a specific or niche type of work, which we've talked about in earlier positioning videos. If you're going after more historic renovation projects, for example, showcase those cool details.
Yeah.
People want to hear them. All right, we're going to jump into our next topic, and that is actually identifying the right topics for blogs. So, Laura, let's talk a little bit about that. What comes to mind for you in regards to choosing the right topic?
All right, so target audience is really the first big thing you need to think about. So you can, in marketing, we talk about B2B and B2C as sort of the 2 big categories. Are you talking to other businesses? Or are you talking to more end users, the consumers? And if you don't identify your audience first, you could write amazing content about stucco, but it turns out all of that content is really about like how best to mix the stucco and apply it, and that isn't for the people that want it on their walls, that's for the people that are also in the business of applying stucco. So it's just, you want to think more about what are the questions that your target audience are asking, and make sure that your content is geared towards answering those questions specifically.
I want to jump in there for a second, because for whether you're an architect, an engineer, or a general contractor, you have really 2 different user segments. You have your end users or clients, but then a lot of times you have your industry partners. So if you're an architect, you've got your GCs, your engineers, your interior design partners, if that's not a service you're already doing. So getting clear on who you want that content to be for. Is it more of a lateral type of content where it's going to those industry partners, or is it going direct to the end user or the end client? So be thinking about that as you begin writing. And I think beneath all that is really our next point, and that is using different search tools to really determine what people are searching for topic-wise.
Yes.
So would you want to share maybe some of the tools that we're using?
Yeah, so we use Ahrefs for specific detailed information to analyze websites where they stand and how they could be ranking. And then we might sometimes, or frequently, we'll go back to Google Analytics to get the mother lode of information. That one's a little bit denser, but it's straight from the source.
I'd say another strategy for determining topics is conducting surveys. So put together a Google form and make it 3, 4, or 5 questions and ask about what types of topics people are seeing, what types of topics they'd like to hear about from you. And from there you can try to distill that, because you've got search world, what people are searching for, then you also have maybe frequently asked questions or what your clients actually want to know from you. So I think of it as a Venn diagram, and maybe we'll have a graphic up on the screen for that. I'm getting prompted right now from One Chain Tony back there, and that's an inside joke. This may or may not make the cut. But Laura, I think it's time for your hot take.
So my hot take is you should delete your content.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. We're talking about creating content here. What do you mean by delete content?
You should be deleting your old content is what I mean. Because we've all experienced, there's nothing worse than going to a website that you think is good and you find an old blog, a blog post that doesn't apply to the current day and age, that doesn't reflect what the company's even doing. It's sloppy. And it happens all the time when you leave up old dead content. So delete your content. Unless an SEO expert tells you not to delete your content, then leave it up there if the SEO expert says it should stay there.
All right, so we just got done telling our users to delete their content, their old content. But now we need to teach them a little bit about how we write content and really the anatomy of a blog post. So Laura, take it away.
Sure. So here's your blog post one-on-one. It's pretty simple. Think about any blog you've seen from a company before. They're all pretty much similar. AEC follows the same pattern that a lot of other industries do. It's the content that really distinguishes itself. So start with a headline. That's obviously important. You want it to be very clear what the blog is about, as clear as you can be within a short headline. Also, target your keyword. You want it helps a lot with ranking for your target keyword if it's in your headline. After the headline, go into the introduction. The introduction also needs to tell people what they're reading about, why they clicked on it. They need to believe that it was valuable from the start.
And it needs to capture attention. There's nothing worse than jumping into a blog and it's just like you're already glossing over it.
Yes.
It needs to pull people in, so make it catchy.
But don't take too much time on it. If you take a whole paragraph doing an allegory and then you move into it, people are going to think maybe this thing's too meandering. So there's a delicate balance between entertainment and informational value. And so after the introduction, you want to go into the body of the blog. You want to make sure that no section is too long in the blog. Ideally, it's going to be broken up into headers that explain what each section is about. They might answer different sub-questions that relate to the H1, the first header that you have. You're going to want to make sure your sentences are short, your paragraphs are short, and you're going to want to use things like bolding and bullet points to make sure everything's ordered. The thing about, if you've ever thought about reading online, you might notice that your eyes get tired when you're reading digitally, more tired than when you're reading on the page. That's why we want to make sure everything's really scannable, because our eyes just tend to struggle to focus on the digital screen for that long.
One thing I really like to deploy, and you may agree or disagree, but I like having, you make a short statement like keep it short, and you bold just that section. And then you have a quick little one-sentence description of what that is. And I mean, when you think about reading, a lot of times you're just skimming and you're looking for those main points.
Yes.
So we'll get into stylizing text later, but that's a really nice way to break up that body text.
Yeah, something that calls the eye to it. It's really important. Nobody wants to read a wall of text. And then the last thing, and this is critical, you cannot leave it off, is you must have a CTA or a call to action. So basically at the end of the blog, if you don't have anything that's moving the momentum of somebody who's read your blog, part or all of it, if you don't move their momentum towards an action, odds are very good they're just gonna be like, well, I got my question answered, and they're gonna leave. So if there's any chance that they are going to convert into asking you to know more, or filling out a form, or downloading a resource, you need to direct them to that at the end of it. And you want to usually have a clickable link if possible. At the very least, you want to have the clear contact information in the CTA.
One quick point with the CTA, you don't want it to be too gaudy either.
No.
Like, choose us, we're the most professional team. No, leave that out. Don't call yourself experts or what have you. Just say, hey, we've got a team and we help people with this all the time. Make it a little bit more subdued. Leave the ego at home.
I like to think about it in that sort of inverse triangle where you start with the topic that you have and you sort of narrow it down a little bit through one or two sentences down to that point of action. So this is all we talked about X, we are Y, to contact us, click here. That kind of structure tends to work pretty well for getting people to do something.
Now we know that right after this episode, you're gonna whip WordPress wide open and or whatever web program you're running, and you're gonna start blogging away. So we thought before we'd actually shoot this episode, we'd come up with a quick little do's and don'ts section, and we encourage you to screenshot this. We might even make it downloadable on our website. I'll have to check with Tony. So let's jump into do's and don'ts. Let's start off with the do's.
So the 3 do's that I really always come back to when I'm working on it are stylization. We talked about this, so bolding certain words, italicizing certain words, breaking it up in certain ways with those different style choices makes it a lot easier to scan, makes it a lot easier to understand. The second one, break up the text, and that means literal returns. I'm not just talking about putting things in there. Headers are a great way to do it, but also short paragraphs with plenty of returns in there, short sentences as well. Really important to keep it scannable, digestible, easy to read. And then add quotes. So I talked about this a little bit before when we were talking about if you have a new person coming in, don't just write a paragraph, that's not good content. Do an interview, that's great content. And it's because quotes are from people. We connect with them typically as readers because we like knowing what people are doing. And so quotes are a great way they will break up the text, but they'll also add value and add entertainment and just quality. It feels like a higher quality piece when you have quotes in there. So those are my do's.
Those are the do's, and I'm going to do the don'ts now, just for sake of variety, I guess. So don'ts, don't get overly technical, especially within AEC, especially those general contractors or engineers out there. Of course, you want to exude your expertise and your professionalism. At the same time, we don't want to get too in the weeds with technical terms. Next point, don't write run-on sentences, because anytime you do that, it becomes kind of exhausting and it's just really annoying, and you just keep on going and people don't know when you're going to end. And this is really uncomfortable for you watching right now. That is exactly what happens when you're reading something and it's a run-on sentence. So avoid them like the plague. And then I think lastly, we've got something on don't rely on ChatGPT. This could also be kind of a hot take, but I know for one, I can really easily pick up when something's written via ChatGPT. And I also think from a searchability standpoint, Google is starting to actually use AI to determine if your content was written by AI. And I don't know if they're going to flag you for it visually where you can see it in the future, but on the back end, I'm pretty sure they're already flagging content that's written by AI. Use it for idea starters and general concepts, but don't let it write the whole freaking article for you. Or if you're stuck on a paragraph and it's feeling chunky, throw it in there and say, smoothen this out and see what it comes up with. Just don't rely on it 100%. So for those of you at home, at this point in the video, you've already pulled up your new blog, you've probably already written it, you use the do's and don'ts, and now you want more people to see it than 2 coworkers and your grandma. So what do you need to do to promote your blog?
I mean, anything and everything. We're a sandwich board. Like, it's up to you, but there are some strategies that are going to be more effective. One of the first one that always comes to mind me is email newsletters. Now, a lot of us don't love email newsletters. They can be a little tedious, but the way you get an email newsletter that people actually like and are excited to see in their inbox and click on it is valuable content, things that they like getting. And so blogs, if you've written valuable content in your blogs that's interesting, redistributing through an email newsletter is a great way to give people that value straight to their inbox. So that's one good idea.
I have a cheat code for that. So let's say you produce 1 blog or 2 blogs a month. Emailing everybody in your email list once or twice a month can be a bit monotonous, right? Not only the task you have to do, but then your readers just see tons of emails from you. Make it quarterly. So let's say it's 1 blog per month. Once a quarter, you say, hey, here are the 3 blogs we produced over the quarter. It's still a way to get the content to them, but it's more condensed and it's less emails. And I think everybody would appreciate less emails.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The other way that I think about distributing it is social media, which is obvious probably on the surface, but there's ways to do it that might not be as obvious. So first, all your different platforms. If you're on Snapchat, it can be on Snapchat. If you're on Twitter, it can be on Twitter. You can share a link pretty much anywhere. But also with the social media post, you can enhance it somewhat. So you can add a quote from somebody else, or you can add a description that ties in how your content reflects on a current event or something going on there. So use it to not just say, hey, I posted this, that's fine. Even better to say, hey, I posted this. It's a lot like the presidential election right now, or whatever's going on in the news. I won't get into politics, I promise.
That's a great point. And I think to follow up with social media, I was tasked by Ray, one of our SEO specialists, to make this next point known. So anytime you produce a blog and publish it, it usually takes Google a couple weeks or even months to see it. So you can actually download, or you can actually create an account for something called Search Console. And so within Google Search Console, you can actually plug in any new content or pages into Google and it will index it right away, which means it's going to be seen quicker. So that's something that we do for all of our clients, whether it's pages or blogs, but it just gets that content in the eyes of Google sooner. Another tactic is creating an advertorial. So that's where you basically take written blog content, maybe something that Laura and Vnzo AEC writes for you, and you develop a campaign behind it. So you put some ad dollars behind it on different platforms, whether it's social media, so Facebook, you can do that. LinkedIn is great with advertorials. You have different Google Display Network advertorial campaigns. There's a whole slew of different solutions there. But that's a way to get ad dollars behind an article. And then last but not least, coupling with video content. You're watching one of our videos here today, and this is absolutely going to get a full write-up. So we practice what we preach here at Vnzo, I'll tell you that. But it's awesome to actually have a conversation about some of these juicy topics. And you think about writing about design, for example, in beautiful spaces. Why not create a video in a beautiful space and showcase the design you're talking about? Take it to that next level. On that note, it's time to end, so we're going to wrap it up here with our conclusion. So today we covered several different topics. We covered types of blogs and importance of them. We talked about identifying topics. We talked about the anatomy of a blog post, and we gave you some meaty details there. And lastly, we talked about promoting your blog content so more than your aunt and uncle see it. All right, so that's what we covered, and if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Laura, thanks so much for joining us here today. Quick little shameless plug, Vnzo AEC, we are marketers, we're website developers, we're video specialists like Tony back here, and we produce marketing materials, and we do marketing for AEC firms. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, head to our website, Vnzo AEC. We're also on LinkedIn, Vnzo AEC, and Instagram as well. So thanks for tuning in. More to come.